So the time for hot takes is over, and we have now had time to actually digest what happened in HD 87 and SD 14. And looking precinct by precinct and looking geographically at the map in those districts, my first takeaway is areas that should vote Republican did vote Republican, but not at the margins that typically have. And this is not just a 2020. So in Florida had a big sea change in 2020, 2022, and 2024, became decidedly more Republican. But the areas I'm talking about specifically, which are in northern Palm Beach County, where Democrats have not won a state house seat, had not won a state house seat since 1980. In that area, came close in 2006 and 2008, actually, to flipping that northern Palm Beach County coastal seat, but had not done that yet until this special election with Emily Nathan. Those areas voted for Republicans at a lower clip than they historically have. Same thing in SD 14. If you look at the northern part of Hillsborough County, that's in that district, Lutz, and the areas surrounding where the Veterans Expressway meets the Suncoast Parkway, which are roads that were built in the 1990s, by the way. Suncoast Parkway didn't open, I think, until 2001. So, in fact, those are areas that have grown explosively since then because of the highway building. This is a common theme in Florida. You build roads which appear to be roads to nowhere, and then the developers follow, and that's how we get the sprawl we have. That's a common theme in Florida. So in South Tampa, in SD 14, which is the Democratic portion of the district, the turnout was not extraordinary. So when I saw that, and I saw the areas that I felt like would be more Democratic in HD 87, historically have been more Democratic, the town of Palm Beach, Singer Island, and saw the turnout wasn't extraordinary there either. I then had to look at overall turnout. Now, there's this theory nationally that there's all sorts of energy and excitement among Democrats and they're turning out in special elections. But actually, if you look at the performance numbers from 2022 and 2024 in both of these districts, and then you overlay it with the turnout in this special election, it basically was the same. So R+7 in terms of performance in SD 14 became R+8 or 9. Basing on how you round up or round down in terms of voter turnout. And then HD 87, R+11 in terms of performance was R+10 in terms of turnout. So this indicates one of two things. Either you have a significant number of Republicans in Republican areas, the northern parts of Hillsborough County that are in this district, Lutz specifically, and the northern parts of Palm Beach County that are in HD 87, places like Palm Beach Gardens, North Palm Beach, Juno Beach. You have Republicans specifically in those areas crossing over, a percentage of Republicans. Not a high percentage, but enough to make differences on the margins. Everything is about margins. It's margins that matter, as our friend Dave Trotter always emphasizes. Or you have a remarkable, and I mean remarkable, skewing of independent voters or NPA voters, as we call them here in Florida, towards the Democratic candidates. That I think is probably the more likely scenario, but these would be right-leaning independents, because what we have always theorized with independents is independents tend to vote like the people around them who are partisan. So if you have a large number of independents in a Republican area, they tend to vote more Republican than Democratic. If you have a large number of independents in a Democratic area, they tend to vote more Democratic than Republican. We have seen this historically in this state. The largest chunk of independents in Broward County tend to vote for Democrats. The largest chunk of independents in eastern Hillsborough County or in Pasco County tend to vote Republican, even though they're registered as independents. So there's that kind of sorting that goes on. So either way, the Republicans don't really have a turnout and motivation problem. They have a persuasion problem. And that is pretty significant, because I think what we have seen over the course of the elections going back to 2008, and this includes 2018 when the Democrats had sort of a wave election. This includes 2010 and 2014, when the Republicans had wave elections. And 2024, I think, was a Republican wave, particularly in Florida. 22 and 24 were Republican waves in Florida. 22, there was no Republican wave outside of Florida, but there was one in Florida. What you have had is generally motivation problems on one side, the losing side, and a highly motivated turnout, and that means the composition of the electorate is different. Highly motivated turnout among the party that ends up winning. I don't think that's necessarily the case now in these special elections. I think we're going from a turnout war to a war over persuasion. And the Democrats, for all of their messaging clunkiness and failure at messaging historically in the state, seem, at least in these two special elections, and actually let me go back to last year. Let me go back to the House District, or the Congressional District 1 election in the Panhandle. Jimmy Patronis won that, but badly underperformed. And then the special election, which Randy Fine won, where he also badly underperformed. The Democrats seem to be winning a message around persuasion. And I didn't spend a lot of time on Congressional District 1. Knew Patronis would win, right? It's a very Republican seat. But Dave Trotter did a turnout analysis, and it showed like it appears like they were either one of these two phenomena I mentioned, which is either Republicans crossing over or independents who are Republican-leaning independents crossing over. One way or another, the Democrats are winning a persuasion battle. And that, to me, is more significant than even the results of the election. And if that continues into November, look out, because the state's not going to flip, right? It's not going to become a Democratic state. Democrats haven't won in the state since the 1990s. I know they've won presidential elections, but that's not what I'm talking about. They haven't won state elections. But you could see shrinking margins. And shrinking margins means that the Senate could go from 2012 to 23-17, 24-16. The House could go from 87-33, or now I guess it's 86-34, to 75-45. 77-43, right? It could, and then that sets up what might happen in future elections. That's the thing to understand. Now, if the Republicans decide to redistrict at the congressional level, they could be asking for a whole lot of trouble in this environment. So the cost of trying to take Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Maxwell Frost, who seem to be their two targets out, could actually be to end up losing 2 or 3 of their incumbents. So I think the pressure is going to be enormous on them not to redistrict. So we will see what happens. So stay tuned to the Florida Squeeze. We're going to do these videos with kind of election thoughts at least once a week from here on out.